It's time for another episode of Let's Talk Manufacturing South Carolina, featuring interviews with leaders and influencers across a variety of manufacturing disciplines discussing trending topics in the industry. Let's Talk Manufacturing is part of the Let's Talk Business South Carolina network of B2B talk shows and brought to you by the South Carolina Manufacturing Extension Partnership. And now, coming to you from the Drum Creative Studio, here's your host, longtime South Carolina business publisher, Rick Jenkins.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Let's Talk Manufacturing. And as usual, it is time for me to spend 10 minutes with my buddy, Andy Carr. Andy is the CEO at SCMEP, the Manufacturing Extension Partnership that is headquartered in Greenville, but doing business, of course, all over South Carolina. Andy, welcome.
No, thank you, Rick. Good to be here again.
It is good to have you again. Let's get right to it. Last episode and the episode before that, we talked about a couple of assessment types of things that SCMEP offers, and they offer them free of charge, of course. But one of the things that we talked about was a tech assessment. We also talked about your manufacturing resource guide that just came out here.
That's right, yeah.
We'll have those on the screen and to show you guys how you can download those or access those. But those are all provided free. You got something else that just came out here recently.
We do.
Your workforce assessment. Tell us about that.
So, Rick, you may remember a couple of years ago, actually the first one we produced was a workforce development playbook, which has been immensely popular, hundreds and hundreds of downloads on that, and in fact, we've even revised it once. Some of the feedback we got from our team at SCMEP was it would be greater to be able to take a deeper dive to have a more formal assessment around about workforce. And obviously, you know, just like the Workforce Development Playbook, we're looking to have conversations with manufacturers to help them become an employer of choice. So that was the feedback that we got probably about this time last year from our team, and something that we've worked on in this fiscal year. It's been road tested, beta tested it, whatever you want to call it, and it is now out there. And delighted with the conversations it's having and the results that it's generating. So, yeah, very excited to have it out there.
And you should be. You know, there's not a hotter topic right now, of course, than workforce challenges within that industry. As a matter of fact, here after we talk with you, we're going to be talking with some folks at MAU Workforce Solutions about how they assist manufacturers in a variety of ways with those challenges. But the more technology we have, the more difficult it is, I think, to find folks who are able to run that technology, to be able just to do the things necessary. It's not an easy chore to find these people.
It's not right. And the new assessment, we love a pun at SCMEP. So it's RX3. Made to look like it's a prescription.
Yeah.
And it is a prescription, I guess, in some sort, but it's only after we've talked to the patient, and that's what the assessment does. But the RX3, it's R times 3, really. So it's recruitment, it's retention, and then it's reputation of your company in that actual marketplace there. Right. So what we're doing is taking a deep dive into those areas. You know, so for your recruitment, where does your talent pool come from? There's a chance that some of it comes from inside, some of it from outside. How do you reach those people? How do you communicate it? Are you the sort of company that's got one of those job ads that, you know, even the HR manager falls asleep after the second line? You know,
right.
Is it a place where people want to come and work? We've got that. Also, we want to talk about your interview process. You know, how do you do that? Yeah. You know, is it a group? Is it an individual? You know, do you follow these best practices? Do you stick away from these things that you absolutely shouldn't do? So, yep, we've got the recruitment one. Then there's the retention. Once you have them through the door and they're there, we want to know things like the onboarding process. Does that finish the same day it starts? If that's the case, you've probably got an issue. Yeah. You know, a good onboarding process can last up for a year. Do you talk about career pathways? Do we talk about the one thing that everybody thinks it's all about is wages and benefits? Yeah, at some point we've got to talk about that. But there's just so much more to becoming that employer of choice and being successful in, you know, recruiting people, retaining them, and then there's the reputation of the company. What do the people on the street say? You know, we've all seen those reviews, you know, the Google reviews with the 1-star company and the 5-star company. What's the difference between them? How do you get those good reviews? Is it a company, Rick, where the leadership actually demonstrates the values? You know, do they live the mission? Things like that. So that's what we want to do. again, like all our assessments, it's about going there. It's about having a conversation, understanding more about the client, and making some gentle suggestions, some recommendations of, something you might want to look at. And again, the resources to help them, they can be from SCMEP, they can be internal, they can be, the HR consultant down the road. It doesn't matter. Right. We just want them as South Carolina manufacturers to get better.
I went to your website, and I think I found my way to your workforce assessment, or at least a piece of it, where there was a lot of questions that are asked. And it appeared to me that by answering those questions, you could see how you stack up to other manufacturers who are taking that survey. Is that accurate?
So that's a little pop quiz. That's a 10-question quiz that we put on the website. And again, it's a conversation starter. It's the spark there. But that's
the beginning, though, of the assessment.
That's the beginning. That's to get you interested. The other one is going to be, you're not going to complete it on the website.
That's right. Our team, you're going to sit down with you guys.
Our regional vice president is going to come in there and have a conversation with. But that's the spark it, and it gives a really good flavor, Rick, of what the deep dive assessment is. And you're right. There's basically 3 categories there. There's the green, which means, boy, you're doing some great stuff here. That's Keep it up. There's the orange, which is, you're doing some great stuff. Yeah. And, you might want to look in these areas. And then there's the red, which is kind of like,
that's right.
Let's have a conversation.
That's right.
Let's have a conversation. You need help.
Yeah.
Preferably ours. But
right. We always talk about your vice presidents. What is their titles again?
Regional vice president.
The regional vice presidents, and you've got about a dozen of them.
Seven
of them, my bad, out in South Carolina, around in different areas. Mm-hmm. I tell you what, those folks have to be on their game. If they are helping manufacturers with a tech assessment, something as widely different as a tech assessment and a workforce assessment, they've really got to be top-notch themselves.
They do. And that's why all our regional vice presidents have worked in manufacturing, usually for a good number of years. Right. Because they do need that background. They need that to be able to demonstrate that credibility. The whole thing when you're sitting across the table from a plant manager, a general manager, a quality manager, an HR manager, it's like, I've felt your pain. I've actually got some scars that I can show you. Right. So, and it's not just about the processes, and, all about production and stuff like that. Yeah. It's about workforce. So again, they've got great expertise in it, but they don't have to have, expertise that goes all the way to the bottom. That's where our network of third-party providers and our internal resources, our actual delivery resources, can help. But they've got to stay up with this stuff. And as you know, Rick, manufacturing changes day to day.
That's right. It does. So I would assume then that you all have vendor partners that are staffing solution type of companies that you work with and point people to when you need to? Is that how that works?
Yeah, when we need to. Again, more in the role of helping consult around that being an employer of choice, and then the training that goes along with that. So yes.
The workforce assessment, as well as the tech assessment, as well as all the other things you provide manufacturers, are free. All of that consultation service you provide is free. And one of the reasons it is free is because it is funded in part by NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technology. Mm-hmm. The MEPs kind of form up under those guys at the national level. Right. You get funding from those guys.
That's right.
You get funding at the state level from Commerce. Mm-hmm. But I bring up NIST because you guys are hosting a NIST. Is this an annual conference?
It's a biannual.
A biannual conference. And does this conference that is in Greenville, different places every 2 years, is that correct?
That's right, yeah. And, last year, we had the overall national conference, that was in Buffalo, and I think the year before that it was in Chicago. Okay. This year's a little bit different in that these are mini conferences, so the conference in Greenville will focus on supply chain, and it will focus on advanced manufacturing technology. The workforce one is actually being held somewhere else in September. But those are the 3 pillars of the NIST MEP strategic plan. It just thrilled that Greenville was chosen as the host venue.
That's right, and that's where I was going next. Now, there is an MEP in every state, plus another one there's 51, right?
That's right. Every state plus Puerto Rico.
Plus Puerto Rico, that's it. So there are 51 MEPs. How does SCMEP get chosen to host this type of conference? Because Andy's great and his people are great.
Well, yeah, that's a given.
Yeah,
that's
but
an absolute
other
given.
than that.
Well, first of all, I think we live in a beautiful city. We live in a city that's reasonably easy to get to, and it's just the right size. But I think the other thing that you look at is we're here in a state that is recognized throughout the system, and even more broadly, South Carolina is a manufacturing powerhouse.
That's right.
You think on our story, Rick, of a state whose manufacturing was basically dying with the textile industry through all those policies. And what was it, 30 plus years ago? We saw BMW move in here, and we know how transformative that's been. So there's that recognition that South Carolina, through a lot of hard work, a lot of smart decisions, has been able to pivot that and move to what we would consider advanced manufacturing, and also be a powerhouse in it. It's a state that welcomes its manufacturers. It embraces them. It incentivizes them to come here. It incentivizes them to grow once they are here. And that, we sometimes when you live here, we lose a little bit of sight. All it takes is a chance to go somewhere else and see that. So thrilled to have them in Greenville, thrilled to be able to show off our city here and our state.
Right.
It really is an honor.
We were fortunate, when I say we, I mean the state of South Carolina, that we were able to reinvent ourselves from a manufacturing perspective, going from textile to what began as auto and now is a little bit of everything, was, I think, a real reinvention of who we are and what we do. And by golly, we have been very successful at it. I'll get you out of here on this. There are a few things you will be talking about at the conference, and you mentioned it, but one of them is supply chain. So I want to talk about supply chain just for a minute. 4 years ago in March of 2020, this thing called COVID came along, and until COVID came along, many of us didn't even know the words supply chain. All of a sudden, it became a part of our everyday lexicon when we couldn't find toilet paper, right? But, a little levity there, but supply chain, real challenges there. That is another place where it feels like we have been trying to reinvent ourselves to ensure that the types of challenges that existed at that point do not happen again. What have we done as an industry in South Carolina manufacturing industry to correct supply chain issues to make sure we're good for the future?
Well, I think, Rick, what you've seen is a huge effort that's gone into that. And I would say primarily reshoring. There's been a lot of legislation at the federal level, and there's been a lot of initiatives at this level to reshore, to bring those key industries and the manufacturers who supply them back to this side. So again, through education, pointing out that some of the arithmetic that was used to justify moving that production offshore all while ago is no longer valid, and it's worth reinvesting in this country. And again, thanks to COVID and people's a heightened increase in awareness around about supply chain and the challenges and what happens when we don't have access to those components, materials, I think that the thinking has changed. I mean, there's still a awful long way to go. But, if you look at some of the statistics recently in terms of the amount of dollars that's been poured into construction and manufacturing facilities in here, it's through the roof. We haven't seen levels like that, I think, in maybe 20 or 30 years. So a huge investment in this country to make us, basically have the capacity and the capability, again, so that we're not dependent on stuff that takes, 6 weeks to come here in a container.
I think supply chain has also benefited from the types of technology that's being introduced these days, automation types of things. I think supply chain is in the process of really benefiting from that.
I think so, Rick, because at the end of the day, we've got access to wonderful technology. We've got the equipment, the other ones, and yes, we're running the same operators using augmented reality, virtual reality. It really, really does help on that side of competitiveness, And again, our challenge here hasn't been so much expensive labor. It's been the labor that we haven't been able to find. So that has been the spur for a good number of companies to go out there and start exploring that. It's not replacing humans. It's replacing the humans that we can't find to do those jobs.
Always workforce issues, it seems like it returns to.
Oh, it does, Rick. That's what it comes back to because, all the tech in the world, At the end of the day, you've still got to have somebody to open that door, program those machines, schedule that production and make it happen. So I mean, artificial intelligence, we hear a lot about it, but it's still all dependent on humans as far as manufacturing is concerned.
That's exactly right. Andy, I appreciate it, man. Good stuff as always.
Well, thank you, Rick. Yeah, engaging conversation.
Oh, gosh, folks, that is Andy Carr. I'm always glad to have him on here, but we are going to continue the workforce conversation here right after this message. We're going to be talking with MAU Workforce Solutions and continue that conversation about how we can fill those jobs that sometimes just seem so difficult to do. Be back in a second.
I bet you want a website that drums up business. You see, every business wants to have an effective online presence that helps their business grow. We guide you through our process that will drive results by clarifying your message with a beautiful design that's strategically optimized for search. Stop wasting your time and money on an ineffective website and let us help you drum up business by designing a website that speaks to your audience and delivers results.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Let's Talk Manufacturing. I'm glad you're with us today, and we're going to continue the conversation about workforce, as I mentioned earlier. And right now, I am joined by Brian Callahan. Brian is the Vice President of Business Development at MAU Workforce Solutions. And as you know, if you've been watching the show, we've had a representative from MAU on here for the last few episodes. But today it is Brian. Welcome to the show, Brian.
Well, thank you, Rick, and thanks to those that will be watching.
Yep. Appreciate you being here. Now, I am aware of who you are and what you do, but we had not met until you came into the studio. Right. So it's good to meet you and spend a little bit of time together.
Looking forward to it. Thank you.
On the last show, I spoke with Emily Heflin. Of course, you and Emily worked together on the business development side, and we talked a whole lot about manufacturers understanding the difference between core and non-core functions and how important it is not to allow something like workforce issues and hiring, which is a non-core function, to be pushed aside because it is a non-core function. And I believe that your boss, Randy Hatcher, who is the CEO at MAU Workforce, writes about that in his book to some degree. Give me the bottom line on it.
Yeah, when we talk about it being non-core, there's really three areas. You think about the core functions of a manufacturer, and then you have those functions or processes that are non-core but critical.
Right.
And then you have the aspect, kind of the outer ring of that would be the non-core, non-critical. And really, Randy wrote the book back in 2010, and it was coming out of what happened in 08 and 09. Right. And a lot of organizations, if they could look back and say, what could we do different? There's only a finite amount of time and the ability to focus on certain things when you think about the complexity of manufacturing, and especially is the speed of manufacturing in today's world. And so when you think about a non-core function but still critical, in the war for talent that we're all in, that's an aspect of where you really want to look for a partner that becomes their core. They own that. And it starts from really how they go to market, how they're positioning the opportunity. When you think about it, it can become the soul of the company of the future, right? And so you think about hiring in today's world, and now advance 15 years in what happened after COVID, the challenges around sourcing for talent there, and you can see why it's important to really have a partner that wants to understand your culture, understand your business challenges, and then own that aspect of the recruiting and sourcing aspect.
I want to make sure that we define things here a little bit. We're talking a core function. We're talking a non-core critical function. A core function would be for a manufacturer that manufactures widgets. The core function is manufacturing widgets, right? And the things that are associated with making sure that gets produced. And the hiring process is what you're referring to as a non-core but critical aspect.
Absolutely.
And and Emily Heflin, the last time we talked about, and you just alluded, I want to get your thoughts on it, how there is so much involved in running a smart factory today. So much technology involved, so many things that are moving fast and furious in that world, that if you're not careful, we continue to spend time on all these core functions, which are core functions. They're incredibly important. But before you know it, we haven't filled those positions, and it's been 6 months.
That's right.
Right? And so how do we do that? How do we ensure that these manufacturers have a way of making sure that that doesn't fall through the cracks? Now, I hear what you're saying. You're talking about a solutions partner.
Right.
Right?
I'll tell you really what we're talking about here is RPO, recruitment process outsourcing. And what we're seeing when you identify the partner that can help you from end to end from a sourcing standpoint, really the cost of the hire can begin to be improved, as well as the speed to hire. Because, again, that's what our team focuses on 24/7, is trying to represent and think of it like we become an extension of an HR department within that manufacturer. Manufacturers today, leaders, they're really thinking about the speed to market. They're thinking about their quality. They're thinking about their productivity, obviously safety, and so forth. Along with that, you have cost compressions. And so that's what, if you think about manufacturers in today's world, advanced manufacturing and supply chain, the leaders really are spending time focused on how to improve that. What are their customers willing to pay them for, right? And so when you're looking for an organization like MAU to come alongside and say, how can you identify ways that we can improve the hiring experience for our applicants? What are ways that we can begin to improve the speed and also reduce the actual cost?
When I think about the difficulty, the workforce challenges in the advanced manufacturing world, I always come back to technology. The faster that technology moves, and let's face it, it's not slowing down. It's only picking up speed.
That's right.
The more difficulty it is to find qualified people to run that technology, which makes the workforce challenges even that more so difficult, right, and important. I think now a lot of what is happening is there's a lot of upskill going on.
Right.
You can't find the right people sometimes, and so you promote people from within that sometimes you might not really have promoted, but I can't find anybody. I got to do what I got to do. Is that correct?
That's correct. That happens quite a bit. And so the challenge, because there's no one way to source and recruit anymore. Kind of the post and pray days are gone.
Right.
Really, it's an array, and it's very strategic on how you go to market to begin to source the potential candidates that you're looking for. And I know Jared, he was on the show previously, had mentioned, we kind of understand and do a survey of the market, kind of a market analysis.
Right.
And you're looking at all kinds of different aspects around commuting patterns and around compensation strategies, not only pay, but just the benefit piece. And really looking for how can we come alongside some of these advanced manufacturers, represent what the opportunity can be presented to a candidate in a manufacturing environment. It's really powerful when you take a lot of the technology that we utilize along with the marketing plans that we engage with to really begin to identify some of the candidates in the marketplace that may not have otherwise been available to source.
I read something. First of all, you mentioned Jared a minute ago. We're talking Jared Mogan, who, of course, is also a co-worker with you at MAU Workforce. I read where Randy, and this is the book we were talking about that Randy Hadger, the CEO at MAU, wrote. I've read where he said that when he wrote this book, which is a dozen years ago.
About 2010.
Okay. That technology was in its infancy in terms of advanced manufacturing world. And now he says 10 or whatever years later that it is still in its adolescence, which is really interesting when you start to think about how much technology is available right now. I mean, from artificial intelligence, predictive analytics, big data, virtual reality, on and on and on, that it's still in its adolescence, which tells me that this workforce challenge, we're in it for the long haul. It's going to be here a long time. We got to keep battling, right?
Absolutely. It is not going away. And you think about technology and how long the shelf life is, so to speak.
That's right.
And how rapidly it is changing. We recently launched a Think about it from a standpoint. MAU, we've been in business 50 years. We just celebrated 50 years, and founded in 1973, based out of Augusta, Georgia. And traditionally, we've been known for our staffing, recruiting, and that's still a big piece of our business. But as we have evolved and as we're trying to meet the changes within advanced manufacturing and supply chain, we recently launched MAU Ascent. And MAU Ascent focuses really around more of the RPO, recruitment process outsourcing, and then MPO, manufacturing process outsourcing. Think of that as a concept of a plant within a plant type concept. And that's our way of still trying to make sure that we're coming alongside these manufacturers and helping them, on their journey as they're identifying their core, where they want to focus, and also identifying those non-core but extremely critical processes that they could look for a partner to come alongside them and really help them advance in their manufacturing processes.
When you talk about a partner, and of course you talked about you're not just a staffing firm, I think most staffing firms these days, or at least the larger ones that are successful, are becoming more of a solutions-oriented firm as opposed to a staffing and a recruitment firm. So I get where you're coming from there. But you're talking about being a partner, a day-to-day partner. I had read something, and I might have read it on your website when I was reading about Ascent, that talks about manufacturers have the ability of having a firm like yours actually work, I think you call it a plant within a plant.
Correct.
Where you guys, correct me if I'm wrong here, are actually staffing this plant within a plant to handle something that they no longer have to think about. Do I have that right?
That's correct. Thinking about that manufacturing process outsourcing, in every manufacturer, there are certain processes. And what you want to look for is a partner that can come alongside and help you identify those non-core but still critical processes. So think about the receiving of raw materials all the way through the back end when it needs to be shipped out, it needs to be wrapped, it needs to be packaged to the customer. What we do is come alongside manufacturers like that and say, our team will own that. And so another way of saying that is we run that. In a traditional staffing model, you can have a model where we source the talent, they're on our payroll, we can manage them from an HR standpoint, but the day-to-day manufacturing direction comes from their team's leadership. They still have to own the process. In a partnership in an MPO, manufacturing process outsourcing, what you find is we actually have former plant leaders that are running these processes. So the metrics are very, at times, very different than a traditional staffing model. And what it enables is that focus, that process becomes our core focus. And our leadership team is driving the continuous improvement, looking for ways to lean out the process, and really focusing on delivering whatever that process, if it's raw material, staging that raw material to the line side delivery, such that our group, that's what they focus on day in and day out.
Right.
And so that really the plant within a plant concept, you can kind of see it differentiates around the level of accountability and the level of ownership that we take inside of facilities.
So you're not only taking care of the process itself and managing the process itself, but when positions need to be filled, you're filling them. When changes need to be made, you're making those changes from a staffing perspective. And when training needs to occur, you're doing the training as well.
Absolutely, all the way through to the fact that from a safety standpoint, we're implementing our safety programs. We own the OSHA 300 log at that point as well. And so again, the metrics around it are not so much focused on what absenteeism is, what turnover is. It's really our time to fill, which are traditional staffing model metrics. It's really focused on our team managing that, and it becomes seamless to our clients.
Right. Brian, good stuff. Appreciate your time.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. Folks, that is Brian Callahan. He is the Vice President of Business Development for MAU Workforce Solutions. Don't go anywhere. We're going to be right back with our next guest.
I bet you want a website that drums up business. You see, every business wants to have an effective online presence that helps their business grow. We guide you through our process that will Drive results by clarifying your message with a beautiful design that's strategically optimized for search. Stop wasting your time and money on an ineffective website and let us help you drum up business by designing a website that speaks to your audience and delivers results.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Let's Talk Manufacturing South Carolina. I'm your host, Rick Jenkins. As you can see, I am now not on the normal set where we record all of our episodes in Greenville. Today, I am at the TNS Brass and Bronze Works plant in Travelers Rest. TNS is a leading manufacturer and global supplier of faucets, fittings, and accessories. Founded in 1947, TNS is headquartered right here in TR. Carolina Handling, they offer comprehensive warehouse and automation solutions, and they've been doing business in the Carolinas for 58 years now. As business boomed for TNS, they realized that they needed to streamline processes to ensure warehousing operations remained as efficient as possible. So they called Carolina Handling. Today, I'm going to talk to representatives from both of those companies about their partnership and how they work together to meet a challenge head-on. So today, I am joined by Gautam Sulakumar. He is the Senior Intralogistics Solutions Project Manager, that's a mouthful, at Carolina Handling, and Bob Clement is the Production and Inventory Control Manager at TNS. Gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
It is good to have you here, and man, I'm glad to be here down at TNS. Now, Bob, I came down here. You invited me a while back. You gave me a little tour. We had a nice time. I got to see your plant. I saw how things worked. And now we are in, what's this building called?
Well, this is our training center. It's called Building D, and it's one of the buildings we have of 4 buildings here on site that we use for training of customers.
I got it. Well, it's a beautiful building, and of course, folks, you can't see what's behind the camera, but it's a nice facility here, as are your warehouses. And Gautam, I just met you for the first time right before we came on the air, but I am well familiar with Carolina Handling. And the CEO there, Joe Perkins, he's on the show from time to time. And so I'm looking forward to this conversation. All right, so let's get to it. I'm going to set the stage for a minute, and then we'll get into the details. So, Bob, business at TNS was booming. Things going great. A few years back, you all decided, you know what, it's going so well, we're going to build a warehouse, right? You see it coming. And as the warehouse gets built, which we're going to talk about, you realize there are efficiencies to be had. Not sure exactly what all we can do here, but we know there are efficiencies. We know we can make the work like our employees better by being more efficient. And so you reached out to these guys at Carolina Handling, and you all got together to address this problem, which took about 9 months or so,
Just about, yeah.
to go through this process of optimizing that warehouse and coming up with some solutions from an automated perspective to make life easier. So that's it in a nutshell, right, guys? I mean, that's basically. So now, folks, we're going to talk about how that happened. And before we do that, let's start with a couple of elevator speeches, so to speak. Bob, let's talk about TNS Brass. You guys have been here a long time, a big part of the TR community.
Absolutely. We relocated here from New York, back in 1978. And we've been working out of the same 65,000 square feet of manufacturing and distribution space since we moved here. As we continue to grow, we realized that we needed to expand in order to be able to satisfy our customers more efficiently, and the fact that we are now shipping close to 91% of our orders in a single day or 2 at most. So we need additional work centers so we can continue to build these faucets that you see behind us here.
Right. And Gautam, turning to you for a second. Now, Carolina Handling, you all have been around, 58 years? Do I have that right?
Yeah.
And you all started, and of course, it is not who you are now only, but you all started as a lift company. You were and still are the exclusive provider of Raymond forklifts, right? That's the way you started, but that's not all you do now by a long shot. Tell us about it.
No. I mean, you're right. Historically, we've been the number one provider, the only provider of Raymond lifts in our footprint here, especially in South Carolina. What that really allowed us to do is to have, all of our 400 plus technicians out on customer sites, seeing all of the problems that our customers are facing, and we saw a problem that we could solve, and we got into the automation space and have been growing ever since, working with folks at TNS Brass and many other customers to really make automation work.
Well, let's talk about you working with those guys. So, Bob, let's go back to the warehouse, okay? So you realized you needed more space. As I said a minute ago, you kind of saw it on the horizon, right? And so you built, a few years back, you built a new warehouse space, what, 60,000 square foot or so?
Correct. So in 2021, right in the middle of COVID, we had a site that we were ready to build, but we weren't 100% sure what we wanted to do within the building. But during the middle of COVID, we were shovel ready, and the contractor contacted us and said, look, a lot of our work has dried up, but we'd like to continue and build you a building. So we finalized the plans for that building. At that point, we really had no idea what we were going to do within the side of the building. We did understand we were going to move our shipping and our receiving area there, but what we wanted in our automation and our warehouse design was yet to be determined. And so in 2021, we started evaluating with Carolina Handling. That one of their sales representatives came in, and we started to have these conversations of what we felt the future would bring. So through that entire period, they would come in as a team and evaluate what we were doing and why we were doing the things we were doing to satisfy our customers. And from there, we were able to come up with a plan for the future. And that was what we did in 2022, was really finalize that plan.
Now, I've been in the warehouse, as I mentioned. You took me on a tour, beautiful little spot there, not little, 60,000 square foot. You needed more manufacturing space, right? Business booming, you got to have more space to make things happen, which is what you turned that warehouse into. Now, you say that these guys came and visited and you all began the conversation. Dosa, how long had you been working with these guys, you yourself?
Honestly, before we kicked off the project, I don't think I'd even worked with Bob at TNS before.
Right. But in terms of this project, you've been with them since the beginning on this project itself.
Yeah, correct.
Okay, so you came in, you realize that, when I look at that warehouse and I see everything that there is to see, and call Bob and come down and take a tour sometime. Seriously, he does a great job. He'll walk you around. It's all kinds of cool stuff. But when I take that tour and I look around, and I'm walking, my mind, I can't wrap my brain around how much organization that is required to make things happen so efficiently. And when Bob is showing it to me, I am just seeing things that it seems so lot. Oh yeah, well sure, that goes from here and it goes to there, but it could not have been easy. You probably had to come in and just immerse yourself into it for quite some time before you could see this is where we should go.
Yeah. No, we did a very detailed design study with Bob and other folks at TNS where I think we just sat with you guys for months and really tried to understand exactly what it would take in order to get this facility to the point that they were going to be able to get orders out in the time span that they wanted to. So it took a lot of understanding of what the product lines were, what other parts of the facility would this portion of the system interact with, and make sure that it was all one cohesive system.
Right. And, Bob, you were incurring some overtime at the time, and you knew that some more efficiency would resolve that problem. But that's not really what this was about for you guys. You all were thinking in terms of the quality of work life, so to speak, for some of your folks on the floor. Because, and you told me this, and I remembered about how important customer service was for you. And it's that way for every company. But for you all, the real key is to get something, to take an order and to get it out the door as quickly as possible. And these efficiencies help make that happen, correct?
Absolutely. We're extremely efficient at the assembly of a faucet. Our fastest work center can build, test, and pack a faucet in about 90 seconds. But the trick is trying to get the right faucets manufactured at a time to satisfy the customer's needs when he may have just placed your order at late in the day, at 3 in the afternoon, and he expects it to ship that day.
Right.
So we have that capability of doing that. Now, our employees are highly educated. They're well-informed on all of our product. And we have over 10,000 active finished good models. So it's just not a 40, 50 items that we build. It's a large product line.
It's not just these.
No, it's just not the two you see. So our employees do an incredible job at building high-quality faucets, but they do it in a very efficient manner. And again, as inventory control and warehouse management, we need to make sure we can store more components in order to satisfy those needs from our customer, but also make it easier on our employees who's pulling all those parts and picking those parts for an individual order. Because it doesn't do us any good to be able to build a faucet in 2 minutes if it's going to take us 2 hours to pull the parts. So we have to find a way to make sure that we're able to satisfy not just the external customer, but the internal customer. And that is making sure that the assembly department always has the parts they need.
Now, you have customers global, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And
So you've got customers all over the world. If a customer calls in, I don't know what that customer looks like for a company is replacing some big order. That doesn't matter. But the customer calls in and says, I want X. How long does it take from the time that call is received? And I'm setting you up here because you shared this with me one time. How long does it take from the time that call is received for it to go through all of its place, hit in a box, and go out that door?
well, we tried to plan for a minimum of 2 hours in order to get an entire order for one faucet out the door. I've seen it done in as less than 5 minutes.
Yeah.
But it's very efficient in the way we're able to process the orders. We, of course, try to keep our inventory levels stocked for our high volume products. So it's a simple pull and take over to the packing department,
Right.
and hopefully get the order out within 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And that's what our specialty is in our industry. Our competitors all have 4 to 6 week lead times, and we can ship typically 90% of our orders within 2 days.
Right. So it goes back to Carolina Handling. So you guys come in, and again, I can't fathom what must have been involved and how long it took to kind of figure things out. But one of the end results was, well, once you decided, you divided up into 2 phases, correct? Okay. And both phases together took about 9 months for you to go through. The first phase, you brought in, and I forget what they're called, the vertical lift modules.
Yeah.
The vertical lift modules, you brought those in, and I saw those, and we're going to show some on the screen or give you a link to them. You can probably see that on the screen now to catch a link so you can see pictures of those things. But really cool. Explain what those were, because that is at the heart of what is being able to optimize and create the efficiency is those machines. It's more than that, but that's a big part of it.
Yeah. So a vertical lift module makes a lot of sense for somebody like TNS Brass, where you have many different kinds of product lines with many different SKUs, and you need to be able to store hundreds of them in a very dense location, and then be able to call them down quickly, pick them, and then pick another SKU very quickly as well, right? So imagine like a very large canning machine where you say, I want this faucet, and then next after that, I want this faucet, right? So imagine big trays come down, they give an operator the chance to make a pick, tray goes away, next tray comes up, take another pick, and move on. So it helps your operators then to be able to get those orders in quickly, be able to quickly pick, and then move on to the next item.
Let me see if I can explain it in terms of the way I saw it, okay?
Sure.
So you've got a machine that, I don't know how tall that is, 40 foot?
About 30 feet.
30 feet tall, and it's probably 10 feet deep. No, something like that, right? And it has shelves that rotate and go all the way up and all the way down. Correct. Is that the way it works?
Correct. Well, the vertical lift module is new. Our older systems were vertical lift retrieval systems, which is described just as you described it.
Yep.
They would rotate in all the shelves.
Yep.
The benefit of a VLM is only one shelf is moving at a time unless you call for the second shelf. So you're not moving, say, 60 shelves simultaneously. You're only moving to one shelf, which makes it extremely efficient, and it makes it a lot faster, and the fact that you're not turning and wearing parts.
How does that shelf then find the part internally and bring it back down? How does that happen?
Yeah, so the machine itself knows what type of product is on what shelf.
Right.
So an operator can call a specific product or shelf down. At that point, I believe that the VLM will then pull that shelf out of its storage, bring it straight down, and then present it out in front of an operator.
I see.
Then when that operation is done, that shelf will then get pulled back in and then stored back inside.
I got it. So the automated piece goes up, grabs the shelf itself, and then pulls it back down.
Correct.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Now, the benefit of a VLM over any other system is that the ability to what it's called compaction. At the end of the day, it will actually analyze what shelves are utilized the most throughout that day. And while you're away in the evenings, it will resequence those shelves automatically so that your highest usage shelf is sitting there at the lower levels, which makes it faster to retrieve because there's less distance to travel back. So it highly makes it much more efficient.
technology, right?
Absolutely.
It's amazing. What else was part of phase one, Goes? I mean, I know that there were lifts involved and, that kind of machinery.
Yeah. We had some swing reaches installed and brought in with charging systems and whatnot. We also had a bunch of rack, really all in preparation for part of phase two, right? I mean, this is 9 months for a whole lot of technology, so we had to do a little bit of prep work by making sure that the VLMs went in first so that we had the amount of space required to get the rest of the system in on time.
Let's talk about phase two.
Yeah.
What happened there?
Yeah. Oh man, phase two was when we really got going, right? So at TNS, we installed quite a bit of conveyor and then integrated conveyor into a pick module system, right? So that an operator didn't necessarily need to do I think you said 10 to 12,000 steps a day. Now they're just very quickly able to walk back and forth about 50 feet or so, be able to make picks, put it on a conveyor, and then have the conveyor take it to where it needed to go, as opposed to an operator needing to be taking all of those steps.
So when you say make picks, I would assume that is as logical as it sounds. I'm going to go over here and pick the part that I need. And what about the project? What allowed that the project to be able to cut down from having to walk 50 yards there and to come here? I mean, how did that efficiency work?
Yeah, I mean, it was really understanding, kind of going back to what we were talking about earlier in terms of all the different product and SKUs that TNS would have to pick from, understanding where to store high pick items and be able to put them in a place where they were most easily accessible. Right. Really just streamlining from a lean point of view, lean management point of view, streamlining how much work an operator needed to do.
Right. Bob, what was the end result with all this?
Well, the greatest benefit we received immediately was the fact that with now 2,400 pallet spaces compared to the 1,600 we had in our previous warehouse in the main building, we were able to now store more material. Now, we planned this prior to COVID when we had the global supply chain crisis, but since then, we've been able to bring in additional material, whether from our local suppliers or from our suppliers from around the world, and we're able to store much more material here at our facility in Travelers Rest in order to satisfy our customers. We went from a standard shipping lead time of 4 to 5 weeks to 12 weeks at one point. So it became very difficult to make sure we had the right parts at the right location in order to build the product daily. But with the new space, we're able to store additional material. We're able to respond to our customers faster. And overall, we're isolated away from the manufacturing area, which just makes us more efficient because we don't have to be as concerned about safety with people walking through our warehouse or going to their work centers. And we're able to now focus on what we do best. And because we are truly a narrow aisle environment now, we're using rim and swing reach trucks and pick forklifts in order to utilize that space to its greatest capacity.
Improved work life, more efficiency, cut down on some overtime, and most importantly, increased customer service, getting that product out quicker than it's ever gotten out before.
And continue to want to do so for the years to come.
Yeah, there you go. Last thing, guys, I'll get you out of here on this. Y'all are still doing work together, right? I mean, you're through this project, but what's happening now between Carolina Handling and TNS?
Yeah, I mean, actually, since the original project, I think this week we just put in several more vertical lift modules in the facility. We're talking about connecting other buildings to that one to make sure that we keep moving forward and keep pushing from that point of view.
We have many plans for the future. As we're currently now moved all the distribution into one building, we're expanding the original facility into all manufacturing. So by the end of the year, we'll have additional work centers, but that now allows us to put vertical lift modules within the assembly department to hold a variety of sub-assemblies and small parts. And when we finally get everything moved in the assembly area, we'll actually put 5 additional VLMs at the front of our building in order to pick the manufactured parts that come off a plating line. So we are looking forward to what the remaining part of the year will bring. And now we're looking beyond that is Locust Robotics bringing in robots moving the material between the two buildings. And we've had many conversations with Carolina Handling team about this project, and we look forward to what 2025 will bring.
Well, I do too, and I look forward to a future conversation about robotics because that is certainly interesting. So thank you guys. Folks, that is Bob Clement. He is with TNS Brass and Bronze Works, and Gautam Siva Kumar, Carolina Handling. Guys, thanks for joining.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Good stuff. Folks, thanks for joining another episode of Let's Talk Manufacturing. We'll see you next time.